Depeche Mode started as a guitar band, and I heard the OMD single, the first single, which was Electricity. And I was kind of just blown away by it and also by the B-side. And Martin Gore joined the band, and he had a synthesizer, so we realised, Fletcher and I, that we could make a more interesting sound with synthesizers than we could with guitars, because our guitar playing was atrocious. It was really a case of, you know, we found that we could make a really great sound with synthesizers without having much musical talent or skill, you know. I mean, when I was a kid, I learned to play the violin, which was quite hard and made a terrible sound. But with a synthesizer, it seemed that you can just use your 2 fingers on a monophonic synthesizer, and it would sound quite cool. I mean, the stuff that we used in the band when we were playing live, you know, we used to mark the synthesizer with black marker to say, you know, filter should be up this far. I had no idea what it actually was. It wasn't until much later that I started getting interested in how the thing worked, what it could do. It was really Daniel. I mean, I had no idea how to use an ARP 2600. You know, I didn't know really, you know, what a filter was or what an oscillator was. It was strictly Daniel. But I used to watch him do it, you know, and I learned from him, well, from watching him, how to make a decent kick drum out of an ARP 2600. But the sequencer was fantastic, though. I mean, that was amazing. Because suddenly we were all in time. And the first one I bought, which I bought new actually, was the System 100M from Roland. That was the beginnings of me learning how to use a modular synthesizer. You know, in the beginning, I just had like dope sheets. There'd be like a trumpet sound. So you go, okay, that Y goes in there and that Y, you know what I mean? And then adjust that by 7/4 or whatever. Yeah, that looks about right. And it would sound nothing like a trumpet. Alison and I, with Yaz, we had a Fairlight which we used for our tour back in the 80s. And I started using it in the studio a little as well. What intrigued me about the Fairlight was the fact that you could sample with it. And also it came out with a really big library, so that was helpful. I think that I embraced whatever was new, so that might be the DX7, the D550, or whatever came out, the M1, the Korg M1, you know. And then I think that I got disillusioned a little bit, because obviously they were much more, those instruments were much more difficult to program. And so you'd kind of end up, or I did anyway, I ended up, you know, you'd spend time editing a sound and then go back to the preset because it always sounded better. Mm-hmm. And that kind of, you know, that took away some of the satisfaction in making sound and making music. We were making a record in, Andy and I from Erasure were making a record in Hamburg. I'd been through lots of drum machines before, but I suddenly thought it would be really cool to have lots of little tiny drum boxes, or drum machines that sounded like drum machines, as opposed to drum machines that had samples in them, like the Lin, that didn't try and be real drums. So that got me started. Then I started buying, you know, little drum pedals, and then I moved on to the synths. In a very short period of time, I think in about 5 years. I mean, it went from being reasonably inexpensive to ridiculously over-expensive. Just because everybody, people like me, were doing what I was doing, you know. I don't just use modular stuff, I try and use a bit of everything, you know. Again, because going back to my point about different manufacturers have different sounds, you know, I think when we're making a record, I don't necessarily just go to a Moog to make the bass sound. It's more of a challenge to try and get a bass sound out of something unconventional. So yeah, so I'll try and use a bit of everything. I was aware of the resurgence because when I moved my studio to the States, I needed to find people to get this stuff repaired and serviced and calibrated, etc. So I started doing some research online, and then I discovered that there were all these companies making new analog synthesizers, which I thought was really interesting. So yeah, I was aware of it, that movement, and you know, I think it's the most exciting thing to have happened in the last five years in as far as manufacturers are concerned. Having worked with Martin Gore has got a lot of this stuff, and he was raving about it, you know. So I thought that I would look into it, and but I'm starting off at a very kind of small level, you know, keeping it simple, because I don't want to overreach myself like I've done before, and you buy things and you realise that actually you don't know how to use it, or you're not going to make use of it. You know, it's I mean, it's great to have all these synthesizers, and it's lovely to have like vintage stuff and all the rest of it, but actually at the end of the day, they're just tools. You know, the important thing is the song or the piece of music you produce with them at the end of the day. But it's still, and also obviously what's really cool about it is it's stable. From what I know thus far, with the Euro stuff, you can do a lot more. There are a lot more modulation possibilities than you possibly could with, say, a simple Roland System 100M, for instance. You know, the electronic field is wide open, and you can go from one extreme to the next. And I'm sure that people are incorporating that into their music, and you know, getting a real kick out of doing it. My sponsor. I love Scooby-Doo.